Hello learners. In this video, we are going to learn about the new topic that's called as closure in Python. Okay, right. So in this case, a closure in a Python which refer to the function that retains access to a variables from the outer scope even after the function has finished execution. Okay, so now this the me you can say is the definition of a particular closure. Now closure is nothing but it's a nested function, right? I can say function inside a function. Now we have two functions, that is one is outer function, one is inner function, right? So so see this example. In this example, we have defined counter function, right? In this counter function, we are saying count is equal to 0. Okay, that means I'm going to initialize the count to the 0. Now, inside this function, we have one more function, say increment function. That's a inner function. So inner function, so we are going to use, or I can say we are going to increment the count by 1 and going to return the count. So when I say return count, now this will return the value of count. Okay, so when you call this for the increment function, right? So in this case, I'm going to use this non-local count. Okay, because now when I use the nested functions, now the variables, this variable say count is equal to 0, it belongs to the outer counter function, but it is not accessible to the increment function. So suppose if you remove this, if I want to comment the line, so you'll get error in this count function because it's a local variable. When you create any variable inside a function, it becomes a local variable. So that is not accessible to the other functions present. So that's why you have to mentioning as a non-local count. So when I mention as a non-local, now I can access those variable inside the functions, or I can modify the value. Okay, right. So after when the increment function return the count value, but what does the outer function will return? Now outer function will return the increment function, right? So outer function will return the function itself, right? It will return the function itself, right? So that means when I create when I call the function counter function, now what actually it will return? It will return a function, right? So that means when I assign this counter function to some variable, now this counter one itself is a function, right? Itself is a function, right? When I say counter one time, now the actually it will call the function, right? Counter one means when I say counter, now it will go to this particular definition and it will increment it by 1. So I'll get the output as 1. If I call the counter function one more time, so I'll get the output as 2. Okay. So now this is the example of your closures, right? The closure will return a function and you can assign to a variable. Now that variable also becomes a function. Now with the help of that function, you can call any number of times. Okay. So with that, you can also pass an argument to this particular increment or counter function. So we'll see that one more example for that. We just will comment. Okay. In this case, we have the defined multiplier. So I can say factor. So how many times I'm going to multiply. So in this inner function, we have defined multiply x. Okay. So when I say return x star factor. Okay. That means, so if I want to double means I can say uh, multiply by 2. Okay. Or multiply by 3 like that. Okay. So you can say return x star by. But what this multiply function will return? Inside multiply function. Okay, it will return a multiply function. So, for example, we say usage, right? So you can say double is equal to multiplier of 2. That means now this 2 is argument passed to this factor. Okay, factor argument. Okay, right. So when I call now, when I say in the previously, we already say that when I return a function, now this double also becomes a function. So I can say double of 5. Now what's when I say 5, now this 5 is passed to the x value, right? That means you will get 5 into 2, you'll get the value 10. Okay, you'll get the value 10. So I run the program. Okay, so I'll get the value as 10. In the same way, I can say triple is equal to multiplier is 3 and change the multiplier to 3. So when I use print triple of 5, now 5 is positive x. Now x 5 into 3 will be, output will be 15. Okay, right. So by this case, okay, now how the this way, this is the way how the closure function will execute. Right. So in this case, we already seen a definition, right? So see, the function that returns the access to the variable from the outer function, even after the outer function has finished execution, right? So when I call this multiplier 2, that means when I say multiplier 2, the outer function execution already completed, right? So it will return the multiply function and the execution is completely stopped. But what happens? Now the inner function will have the its value, right? Or I can say it is executing, right? When I call double of 2, now the inner function will execute and you will get the desired result. Okay, that is the meaning of this particular line. This particular line. Okay, right.